And joining me for part one, we welcome back audio consultant Brett Spencer.
Hello.
Brett, your voice has gone a little bit.
The voice has gone from talking to too many people.
And you've been telling a lot of people about City University. What's been going on?
Well, we've launched the first MA in podcasting, the first dedicated MA in podcasting. So we've got a stand here at the show, talk to people about it, and try and attract some bursaries from the big companies. We just announced our first one today, which comes from Carole Cadwalladr and the guys at Goalhanger, who have given us a bursary to support a student for next term, so for the first term, which is in September. So thanks to them. But there's been a huge amount of interest from across the board, from all different parts of the industry.
I mean, it's great that there's going to be some proper academic courses for podcasting, and also looking a bit broader than production. That's right, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, we gathered together a really great group of people last summer. We had people from Spotify and the BBC and Acast and Sony and loads of others, and indeed Chloe, who's here with us. And they all helped us shape the course and where sort of the needs were in terms of training in the industry. So the degree won't just be about how to make a podcast. It will be about how to write a host read, how to work with brands, how to pitch to a commissioner, how to commission content, how to work with advertisers. Everything that the industry involves, that is in addition to making a podcast.
So will it also include putting your content on Twitter Spaces, something that obviously happened this week?
But that doesn't work, as we know.
With Ron DeSantis.
Yes, that doesn't work. Well, yeah, it was interesting last night that Twitter couldn't get Ron DeSantis' announcement to work in terms of audio on Twitter. But meanwhile, they're planning to publish, Ben Shapiro's podcast and lots of other right-wing podcasts, and even apparently transmit Tucker Carlson's show. Well, he had 3 million viewers on Fox, so how Twitter will handle that sort of traffic. Maybe he shouldn't have sacked all the people working on Twitter Spaces.
Strange that, isn't it?
Yeah.
Also joining us, a return to the media podcast for Chloe Straw, Managing Director of Audio UK. Who have you spotted whilst you've been here at the podcast show? Any celebs?
What a question.
Apart from yourself.
Well, Brett and you, of course. So I don't think I've seen any celebs,
You didn't pop in and see John Ronson or Tim Burgess speak?
I find it sort of end up not seeing any panels. There's so many people I wanted to see, but sort of doing your own panels and obviously excellent things like this, and we've got a stand here as well, means that I've seen a lot of mates, but perhaps not many celebs.
There's quite a few indies here, aren't there? What are they getting out of being a show like this?
That's a good question, and in fact I was chatting to one of our members earlier about that. I think that it's probably the same for everyone. I think there's a lot of conversations that you have. There's obviously a huge amount of potential business here in terms of brands and other creators. I think brand recognition is the biggest thing. But I think also it's just nice to see the conversations that they're having. There's different things that they've done. Fresh Air have a kind of area that they've got. Listen did a stage yesterday. TBI are here. Whistledown have got a booth. Obviously, something else are here under Sony. And I think everyone's doing a bit of everything, and that's really nice to see.
Story number one, Phillip Schofield has left this morning, kind of after a slew of innuendo-laden tabloid stories over the past few weeks. Holly Willoughby returns after the holidays. Brett, I mean, ITV have kind of made this decision. You've got a background in working on breakfast television. I mean, that environment, it kind of combusts people.
It does, and it's hard because I worked on GMTV for about 5 years, which is now Good Morning Britain. And as soon as you're through a show at 9:30, you're literally into the next one. So it is very, very full on doing a daily show that is of that length. I thought it was interesting in the ITV statement that when Piers Morgan left, they said that Piers had decided to leave. But this quite clearly said that ITV has decided, so it was clearly their decision for him to go. Also, the press have had it in for him for a long time, it seems. Certainly it all ramped up during, when the Queen passed away, and we had that incident where they were supposedly jumped the queue, or as Holly said, we would never jump a queue. Interestingly, we were discussing the merits of the story with a group of journalism students the other day who were sort of doing one of their practice news days, and one of my colleagues said, we all remember him when he started off in the broom cupboard with Gordon the Gopher, and a whole room full of students went, what? Gopher? Broom cupboard?
Well, maybe that is a return to that could be on the cards. Talent, it's tough, isn't it? And also particularly relationships between two people. They seem to be a pair that got on really well, but issues have sort of strained it over the past few months. It's difficult to manage that, isn't it?
Yeah. I think it's also an incredibly difficult situation to judge from the outside. It's like with a lot of kind of celebrity feuds or celebrity problems, we're consumers of those stories, aren't we? And I think it can be, you look at that story and it's sort of all over the place, like this happened and, that happened and was it ITV? I also think with those two, the impression that you get, particularly after Phil kind of coming out a couple of years ago, I think, is they've sort of built themselves up as really good friends in real life. You hear sort of, they go on holiday together and Holly was such a wonderful support and so on and so forth. And I think that it doesn't feel like just a professional relationship that's unpicking, does it? It feels like a hugely personal one as well, and an incredibly long-standing one. So I think it's impossible to understand what's really happening there, what's going on.
I'm enjoying all the agents trying to get their clients into the newspapers as they're the hot tip to take over, secret talks going on.
I mean, agents is an interesting point, isn't it? Because both of them, I think, used to be repped by YMU. I think Holly went and sort of created their own kind of management company. I mean, managing the press around any talent can be quite a challenge, can't it?
It is, and often, the best agents, their skill is keeping stories out of the paper rather than getting stories into the paper. And there may be a lot more in this story to come. We don't know yet.
I mean, it's strange because obviously there's a lot of innuendo about it and things that have gone on. He had some unfortunate things happen with his family as well. He hasn't been able to control the narrative or talk about it really yet. Has he just got to kind of go away and re-emerge after the air's cleared?
I think so. I mean, we've seen people, go away and come back, and we saw it with Piers Morgan. Piers Morgan had to go away for a while before he came back to Talk TV. So, I'm sure down the line he will be fine and he'll appear somewhere else. And I'm sure his agent's currently putting out feelers elsewhere to find him that next highly paid gig.
Moving on, some interesting audio news this week that the BBC's announced that shows including Desert Island Discs will move from in-house production to BBC Studios. Chloe, tell us, how does this work? Is there a big difference?
I think that remains to be seen, is probably the best way to put it. So at Audio UK, we talked to the BBC quite a lot, so we kind of knew that they'd been undergoing an internal speech review for a while, which was kind of the news this week, was the conclusion of that speech review. Obviously, it still has a way to go in terms of going through Ofcom and everything like that, but their recommendation was that a certain percentage of their speech output moves to studios. So I think the really significant thing, particularly for the independent sector, is that means that a percentage of speech audio that wasn't there before will now be able to compete in the open market. So obviously Studios competes to an extent already and has the ability to have podcasts on Audible, Spotify, Amazon Music. But I think the really big thing for us is that there will be a much bigger chunk. How big that chunk actually is, I think still remains to be seen. And I think, you hear different percentages or different numbers, but I think the proof will be in the pudding in terms of what that actually looks like.
Is this sort of a replication of what happens in television and basically all non-news has been sort of shoved into BBC Studios?
Not all of it, and again I think that's something that we probably need some clarity on. We've kind of heard different numbers, but in terms of what that actually looks like. But it is a similar model to TV, and I think the kind of the Audio UK point of view and the kind of indie standpoint on it is that if more of the BBC comes out into the open market, then more of that obviously represents increased competition for the indie market. And the BBC is a big production superpower. It's not like it's kind of a small entrant to the market. And obviously historically that's been built up through public funding and the training that their staff can get. If that comes out into the market, then actually more of the BBC's speech output or general output needs to be opened up to indie competition. And obviously, not to go too much into the ins and outs of it, which I love to do, but currently 60% of relevant hours, which is effectively non-news output, is open to competition. That's is very nuanced, it's very complicated. And I think
it's kind of like something like a Radio 1 daytime strand might not be up for competition, but a 6 Music daytime strand might be.
Exactly. So there's a lot of different kind of rules and percentages, and I think I would love to see the audio model replicate the TV model. I think the TV model, where 100% of TV is open to competition between indies and studios, and BBC is really clean cut, and I think something that we hear from the BBC is the kind of different percentages are very hard to administer. People are, they're a commissioner, they're also trying to manage in-house teams and so on and so forth. And I really like the TV model because it just opens it up entirely to 100% of competition.
Like for example, something like Six Music, I think everything's already open for tender, isn't it? They have to put everything out. But the other point I wanted to make was, it's not a very hard show to make Desert Island Discs, is it? Let's be honest. I mean, you've got to book a great guest, and to be honest, I'm not sure many people will say no. You've got to find the 8 records, and then you've got to throw it into the mix the best broadcaster and interviewer I've ever worked with. So, the 3 of us could probably make it, couldn't we? So I'm not sure how difficult it is. And actually what that'll be about is who can do it cheapest, I would suspect.
And the move to the sort of TV model would be quite a shock for the people who work in BBC Audio at the moment, making things for networks or sitting in the network building.
I think, certainly during my time at BBC, people in BBC Audio had got used to things going out and being in competition. Everyone had to learn how to pitch. That was an interesting time because programme makers at the BBC weren't experienced at pitching in the way that people for indies were. I think the key difference here now is that you would never imagine a show like Desert Island Disc, which is one of the crown jewels, would go out. So I imagine, that is the big shift for them, that actually it's not just kind of, the part work shows or stuff on the fringe of the schedule, that major BBC properties like Desert Island Discs, which it was always quite hard to do stuff with because Roy Plomlin's estate had to have the rights. So it was very difficult to do anything around Desert Island Discs. I know, having tried to do something around it some time ago. So that's quite a shift.
I mean, Chloe, do you think some of it is actually BBC Studios getting their hands on some formats that they can do other things with, both in the UK and outside of the UK?
Yeah, I mean, 100%. The BBC's got to look towards the commercial future, right, and see how they can kind of prepare for that. And, we're at the podcast show, we're surrounded by Audible and Spotify and Amazon Music and Acast, who've all been distributing on a kind of global stage for quite a long time now. And 100%, studios, it's really important for them to look at how they can monetize their content. I think it is really tricky because the BBC is a PSB organisation, and how do you balance that with the commercial needs of that organisation? And I think also thinking about contributors, if you're a writer, you might do something a bit more cheaply because it's the BBC and it's PSB. If that content's suddenly commercial, then how does that work? So I think they've got a tricky time on their hands in terms of seeing how that all plays out. But absolutely, they should be doing it. I think it's really important to think about how it interacts. And I also think that, one of the huge things about the BBC is it's the best ideas for the audience. And we know that greater competition breeds greater ideas, which is why more competition makes sense, and also greater diversity of ideas, in terms of our members, they're from all around the UK, and I think it's really important that the audience gets, the best ideas. So that's why I'd like to see more.
Well, speaking of money, Carole Cadwalladr has been hit by a bill for £1.2 million after a judge ruled she must pay the legal cost of Arron Banks. The billionaire Brexit donor successfully argued that a TED talk by Cadwalladr should not have been streamed once a public interest defence had fallen away. Carole says that she didn't have any control over the content and couldn't have taken it down if she wanted. This case gets a bit complicated, and in some ways they've both won and they've both lost. Is she right, Brett? It's not been down to her?
I think it's difficult when you're an individual and you're sort of fighting a well-funded operation, isn't it? And essentially it isn't down to her because it was published by somebody else, but effectively it was her that said the words. So it is ultimately down to her. And once you're saying something in any public arena, it doesn't matter whether there's 3 people in the room or if it's being streamed live, you said it in the public arena. So she has got responsibility for that. But you are always going to be at risk if you're doing something like that and you're going up against some big hitters.
Seeing her tweets about it, I feel that she feels that she's been somewhat let down by The Guardian and other people, who's been left to sort of deal with this on her own. As you get kind of big columnists or big characters, we're going to see more of this, I guess, aren't we, Chloe?
Yeah, I think it's a very tricky situation, isn't it? And I agree with Brett to an extent. I'm a big fan of accountability. I always talk to my children about accountability, and for poor children. So, taking responsibility for what you say. But I think it's so much more nuanced than that, isn't it? And I think you've got these big potential supporters of her and you sort of think, should they have been more behind her? Is there this sense of like, we're just going to step back and let it go? I mean, it's very complicated in terms of what's happened and the kind of who's responsible, and I think it's a really tricky case. I think it's really hard to judge kind of who's responsible, who should have supported who. But absolutely, from a personal point of view, you can imagine her feeling let down, can't you? I think you can imagine that feeling from her. It's, tricky to know sort of, I don't know, why do you think those organisations didn't support her more?
Well, it's difficult. I mean, broadcasters want kind of edgy content, and this is in the journalism space. This is investigative journalism. This is hard work. You also see it with talent, and be that even like the Joe Rogan end of things, and just doing stuff that gets some notoriety. I mean, if you're going for that, have you got to back your talent more and more?
You have, and we saw an incident around Phillip Schofield with GB News where they broadcast something that was potentially libelous and had to take it down. So, if you're unleashing your broadcasters to be controversial, you've got to expect to run into trouble. It's a sort of frightening time for freedom of speech, though, isn't it? Because she's speaking her mind there, and therefore it's going to cost her over £1 million. And it's the same as the Elon Musk story we talked about earlier. Here's somebody who controls the algorithm of what we might see. So it is a worrying time. It's all a little bit Succession, isn't it? For anyone that's watching that series. And if you subscribe to this podcast, you'll be able to hear what Chloe's kids did to deserve the lecture on accountability.
Patreon.com/MediaPod. She's raised almost £1 million from the public with her crowdfunding. That also shows that if you've got a great relationship with your audience, you can activate them, especially when it's very obvious that they need the dosh.
Absolutely. I mean, that's the ultimate subscription-based model, surely, is that you're making money from not from your content, but from your case sort of thing. But, absolutely, it's you never like to see a case where someone's got a huge amount of money and someone else doesn't. So there's obviously people who really support her. And I think for anyone, whether that's a podcaster or a journalist, we live in a world where we're far more individual now, aren't we? That's the great thing about the kind of creator economy and everything like that. But you're right, how does that work within the world where those big organisations are kind of supporting those people or not? But great that she's raised so much money.
We'll be back with Chloe and Brett after this. Okay, welcome back. Brett and Chloe are here. I've kept them on the sofa to do the media quiz. Fortunately, no more radio charades. I managed to axe season 2 of that. Instead, another terrible quiz from the mind of Matt Hill. I'm going to read you a headline from something that's happening outside of the podcast show, but I'm going to read it one word at a time. And you'll take it in turns to guess what the story is, despite obviously both of you having no actual connection with the outside world because you've been here.
We could be here a while.
Okay, here we go. Chloe, you're going to start.
Oh, gosh.
So, crackdown.
Police.
On.
Netflix password sharing.
Correct.
So
got it into what's happening?
So Netflix want people to stop sharing passwords, and
how outrageous!
They're going to start cracking down. And I think if someone is sharing your password, they would have had to have logged on to your home Wi-Fi in the previous month for it to carry on working. So I'm expecting to see quite a lot of my daughter over the next few months as she runs home to log on to our Wi-Fi.
It sort of amazes me that they didn't do this before. Like, password sharing's been going on for so long, hasn't it?
Well, I think historically they quite liked it because it spread the service.
Yeah.
Right.
And they finally reached the point where it's like, actually, marketing's fine now. We'd like the dosh.
Right.
In some markets, they've been trying this. They've been basically saying you can share your password for a small additional fee with people to try and get them into the system. Do you think it will generate more subscribers, Brett?
Well, I think they've been losing subscribers in some territories, haven't they, where they've tried it. So it remains to be seen. But of course, there are lower tiers now because you can take a tier with advertising. So I suspect the boost will be in the lower tiers rather than the higher tiers.
So they're going to be kind of emailing and writing to people that they've also noticed have been sharing their passwords. Either of you received a letter yet?
No.
No, good. Good. Right. Okay, question number 2. We'll start with you, Brett, as you got the last one. Tucker.
Is this Tucker Carlson? No. Tucker Carlson potentially doing his show on Twitter.
It's good, but it's not right.
Oh.
So, Tucker, then Carlson.
Oh.
Wow. I might have to hold it. I'm really bad at quizzes. It's that the area of my brain that should hold this just doesn't hold it, so I'm going to pass it back to Brett.
Third word, home.
No.
Okay, fourth word, studio.
A home studio?
Yes. Any more on that?
Do you have any more, Brett?
5, dismantled.
Well, he does his show from a home studio for Fox, who's never actually in the studio.
Oh, there you go.
And I think Fox have come and taken it apart.
Correct.
And he's got to go in, has he now?
Well, no, because he's been fired.
Oh, there you go.
So
see, it's the result of my
they've come and taken all their gear back.
Yes.
Like being marched out from your desk with your box when you get fired, apart from...
They come to you to remove your desk.
Oh.
And the speculation is going to do his show on Twitter, although he may end up on greatest hits like everybody else.
But also, I mean, if Tucker was looking at Twitter as a potential location, as we were talking about earlier, for his new show, he might be having to have some second thoughts. Also, I just think on that Twitter side, wasn't it a great reminder what a great job all the engineers do at broadcast media all the time?
Absolutely.
To do live productions everywhere. And they're sort of ignored somewhat until there's a problem.
Yeah, including the guys here at Spiritland, whose studios we are currently in, available for renting King's Cross.
Excellent plug. Right, final one. Chloe, this is for you to pull back some respect.
There's none.
Here we go. 1, FTs.
Nope, over to you, Brett.
Cut price.
Don't know.
Antidote.
Nope.
2. Chloe, the.
Matt can't believe it, his face.
That's right.
Is this the success of the new FT app?
Yes, it is. This is the FT Edit app,
Right, FT Edit.
which allows 8 articles a day for free, which has been a success. We've had 100,000 subscriptions through it. I mean, app productions, it's difficult to create something. I mean, this is the week that the New York Times has launched their own audio app too. You've been involved in some apps at a variety of different media companies. It's difficult to establish any new app with the public, isn't it?
It's difficult to get people to download an app. I mean, I was involved in a new Bauer app that's coming shortly, and we did a lot of research with listeners. The average listener's got about 27 apps on their phone. Now, if you think about that, including all the social networks and your train timetables and Instagram and everything else, very hard to get in that 27, isn't it? You've really got to go some. So getting people to download your app and then keep it is very challenging.
Congratulations, Brett. 3 out of 3. You stormed that. And then another new excellent format that maybe we can sell to BBC Studios for them to take around the world. Thanks to Brett Spencer and Chloe Straw. Where can listeners keep up with what you're doing?
I'm on Twitter at BrettSR.
And Chloe?
I'm Chloe Straw, but also please join Audio UK. You can find us on the internet.
And if you want to check out the City University podcasting degree, it's at city.ac.uk/podcasting.
Thank you both.